All right, this is going to be a really good exercise for the uninitiated. I'm going to give you quarterback A and I'm going to give you quarterback B. I'm not going to put any names to it. We'll reveal them after, obviously, but I'll put statistics to quarterback A and to quarterback B. Quarterback A, averaging 5 air yards per attempt this season, averaging 3.6 air yards per completion this season. So really short throws, and has the highest percentage of his passing yards coming from yards after the catch because he's throwing short and his receivers are picking up most of the yards after the catch at 66.7%. That's QBA. QBB has twice as many air yards per attempt. So that's 10 air yards per attempt. Has 9.1 air yards per completion, also really high. So he's throwing for nearly a first down through the air on every single throw. That's an extremely high average. And has the lowest percentage of his yardage coming from yards after the catch in the entire NFL, 32.8%. So quarterback A throws short, probably would call him a game manager based on what the people have set as the definition of game manager. And quarterback B, total gunslinger, impressive stats, throwing the ball through the air. So you have two QBs. You have Brock Purdy and you have Patrick Mahomes. Which one is A and which one is B? A is the short thrower. B is the long thrower with all the impressive stats. Which one do you think is A and which one do you think is B? Do you think Brock Purdy is the short thrower, or do you think he's the long thrower? And which one do you think is Patrick Mahomes? First, I mean, just go into the comment section. If you think Brock Purdy is the short thrower, you could say Purdy is A. If you think Brock Purdy is the second guy, you could say Purdy is B. Well, we have the big reveal to answer the question. No further drama right now. Guess which quarterback is done? This is from Brad at the SF Niners. Did a great job with the graphic. Go check him out. Brock Purdy has averaged twice as many air yards per attempt, 10, than Patrick Mahomes this season. Purdy has averaged 9.1 air yards per completion compared to only 3.6 for Patrick Mahomes. Purdy has the lowest percentage of his pass yards coming from yards after the catch, 32.8% in the entire NFL. Mahomes has the highest, 66.7%. For those, I mean, if you watch too much of the mainstream talking points about these quarterbacks, if you fell into the stereotypes on Twitter of, we'll call them film watchers or people who don't know what they're watching on film, if you fell into any of that, your brain would be broken by this. But entering this game between the 49ers and the Chiefs, Brock Purdy is one of the most aggressive quarterbacks as far as downfield throws go in the entire NFL. As you can see here, Summer Sports, I've sorted this by average depth of target. Purdy right here is number 2 in the entire league. You can see the 49ers logo. You have to expand the list to find Patrick Mahomes all the way down here at number 35. So his average depth of target is 5.6. Purdy way up there at 10.6. So by every single conventional definition that people had tried to apply to quarterbacks and to Brock Purdy over the past couple years, using the very same definitions that these people have used to denigrate Purdy, we can call Patrick Mahomes a game manager, and we can call Brock Purdy the greatest quarterback of all time. My main point is that the game manager argument was always ignorant of actual football. I don't actually believe in any of those two extremes, although the internet seems to love them. There's nothing wrong with setting up Yak. In fact, I think it takes good quarterback play to set up Yak. There's nothing wrong with less air yards or more air yards, although people seem to determine the quality of quarterback play based on those numbers. At the end of the day, those are all stylistic stats. Efficiency is the be-all, end-all. However you get from point A to point B, whether you throw short and set up Yak, or you throw long, or you scramble to create off schedule situations. However you create, as long as you get to an efficient spot to end the day, you have achieved the ultimate goal. Well, Brock Purdy has gotten to the very good spot of efficiency for the third straight season through a very unconventional route. This is the Yak Circle of Life. And the reason I call it the Circle of Life is first I've got to show you the 2023 yards after the catch stats in the NFL. This is from Pro Football Reference. Yards after the catch per completion ranked will highlight Brock Purdy, 6.7 at the top of the league. We'll highlight Patrick Mahomes, 6.4, number 3. Jake Browning didn't really have a whole lot of games last year. Started 7, but the only two guys with close to full seasons, Purdy and Mahomes, with 16 games apiece, 6.7 and 6.4. Well, Mahomes is still at the top. His big-time Yak total has him at the very number 1 spot of the league. But what's wild here, what's truly brain-breaking here, is that Brock Purdy's number with the 49ers is way down in the corner. The least Yak by far in the entire NFL. So the vast majority of Brock Purdy's damage is coming through the air, not with receivers running with the ball after the catch. And I call it the Yak Circle of Life because it's really clear that Brock Purdy didn't just go from this to this because he turned into a bad quarterback. He went from this to this because defenses are playing him completely differently to cut out the possibility of Yak. The efficiency overall for Brock Purdy, if we go to either total EPA, which is number 4 overall here, or EPA per play, which is number 6, it's still in the very top echelon of the NFL. So when we say that efficiency is the end-all, be-all, when we see Brock Purdy top the efficiency list, he's ranked as the top-graded quarterback, by the way, by Pro Football Focus in the entire NFL this year. He's gotten to the top of the heap, but he's just taken a roundabout path to do it. So actually what we've seen from Brock Purdy over 2022 to now is probably the most impressive statistical resume of any quarterback in the league because he's achieved top-notch efficiency through 2 different avenues. He's done it through the 2023 numbers, which I'll put up on the screen one more time. Very top of the league. He's the top highlighted guy in Yak. And he's gotten back into the top 5 even without Christian McCaffrey, without the yards after the catch. Yes, quarterbacks try to facilitate Yak unless defenses are playing you the way that people are playing the 49ers to create the Yak Circle of Life. And the downswing in the Yak Circle of Life, we've seen a ton of 8-man coverages, a lot of 3-man rushes against the 49ers, a lot of gambles on the intermediate throws that generated Yak for San Francisco last year. So we're seeing a safeties crowd that the seams in the middle of the field, top-down style defense against a lot of the screens and against a lot of the crossers that the 49ers have run in the past, have encouraged Brock Purdy to do one of 2 things. A, he can just throw checkdowns short with little chance of Yak because the defenses have an extra guy in coverage and they're converging hard on the 49ers. Or he can scramble around a bit and he can air it out, go over the top to beat those defenses which are hovering, trying to vulture on the yards after the catch. Purdy has obviously chosen more of the latter. His tight window throw rate has doubled. His deep passing rate has skyrocketed. And when we look at the quarterback comparison with him and Patrick Mahomes in these regards, we see that he has indeed pushed the ball downfield statistically at a level that is 2x, over 2x, I would say, when it comes to yards per completion of the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback who's coming to Santa Clara this week, who's been known as a gunslinger and somebody who can air it out downfield. Times have changed, though. Patrick Mahomes no longer has Tyreek Hill. He's having to perform in different types of ways. Brock Purdy no longer has Christian McCaffrey. The stylistic nature of his game has had to change as well. Mahomes is a great quarterback. He's been able to adapt without Tyreek Hill. Brock Purdy's a great quarterback. He's been able to adapt without Christian McCaffrey. Now, McCaffrey is going to be coming back at some point this season for the 49ers. So we're going to continue to get a look at what Brock Purdy can do within the context of an evolving offense. What happens when Christian is out there, because he's such a good receiving threat coming out of the backfield, and because he's got such good chemistry with quarterbacks, and he knows exactly where the soft spots of defenses are, and Purdy can trust him. What he does is he takes so much of that converging attention. The defense is now converging on Yak all over the field. He brings it to himself. Doesn't have a great yards per route run number. It was like 1.36 last year. Wasn't producing prolifically through the air, although he was the rushing champion, and that's a whole other benefit for the passing game. But through the air, he's many times a decoy. He's a gravitational pull for defenses that come toward him and then be able to attack, and the offense is then able to attack elsewhere. The running game that Christian McCaffrey spearheaded last year as the NFL's rushing champion, that also helps loosen up passing defenses in a way that opens things up for Yak. The 49ers don't quite have that. So without McCaffrey on the field and his dual threat role, defenses are just ready to pounce on the 49ers. They're going top down. They're making everything harder for Brock Purdy. As I mentioned, his tight window throw rate was 12% last season. It's 25% this year. So he's having to throw into tighter windows because there's less of a gravitational force from the future Hall of Famer named Christian McCaffrey, who obviously is so important to the 49ers. But the reason I said at the start of the year that the 49ers can take their time with Christian McCaffrey, that he can take his time, that it's important that they get this rehab right, is because Purdy is so damn good. And so far, that's been proven to be the case. The 49ers, 3-3, but boy, you look at that docket of games and you say Brock Purdy's not the reason that they're worse than 5-1. They should probably be 5-1 if not for some special team screw up. So the whole thesis that the 49ers were okay, would be okay without Christian McCaffrey, I think has proven to be true. They've obviously tripped over themselves a couple times, mainly thanks to the special teams unit, but they have a chance to undo a lot of that moving forward. And this showdown against the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be particularly fascinating. Guess which quarterback, Purdy or Mahomes, QB-A or QB-B? Well, I brought that at the start of the show. This is now a spoiler. Just fascinating, fascinating stuff from Brad. And this is going to be fun this weekend. The 49ers defensively against Patrick Mahomes are going to see their biggest test. This got ugly in 2022 in the regular season when the Chiefs came to Levi Stadium. They put up 40 plus. Charvarius Ward wasn't fully healthy in that game. I don't think he's been fully healthy to start this season. So, I think that the lesson from the Seattle game was it's not worth it to push it. And I think you combine that lesson with the lesson against Kansas City in 2022. Why push it if you've got the depth behind you to get the job done? Maybe the 49ers didn't have the necessary DB depth back in 2022, so Charvarius Ward had to play. But they made the decision against the Seattle Seahawks that it wasn't worth it to strain unnecessarily with Charvarius Ward and his knee injury. So they sat him. Renardo Green played instead. He was ready for the challenge, but it's going to be a much bigger challenge against Patrick Mahomes this time around. Mahomes is the great one in the league right now. He's found ways to win several different varieties. There was a time when he didn't have a great offensive line, and he just had to keep on backing up behind that line of scrimmage. That obviously was the fateful play to Tyreek Hill in the Super Bowl that brought the Chiefs back in the game in Super Bowl 54. But that was not the sustainable path for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and they found out the hard way in Super Bowl 55 when they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who absolutely overwhelmed them up front. They finished the job that the 49ers wished they could have finished the season before. It looked like Tampa Bay had a little more juice defensively in 2020. At that game, the Chiefs said, okay, we can't live with the offensive line that we have against this type of pressure. We've got to completely overhaul the front. And they did. And at this point, the Kansas City Chiefs have the number one pass block win rate and the number two run block win rate in football. But they're struggling to really separate and get open downfield because they no longer have Tyreek Hill. Rashee Rice is not playing right now for the Chiefs. Travis Kelce is aging. I don't think he's in the best condition that he's been in his career. So the downfield weaponry is a little bit more limited, and that's turned into Patrick Mahomes having to play a shorter precision game for Kansas City. All credit to him for being able to keep up the good play. The 49ers, meanwhile, their offensive line has improved, but it hasn't improved to the levels that we see with the Chiefs. So Purdy is showing that he's one of the best scramblers in football, which is something I already said last year. For some reason, it's not controversial anymore. Same stuff on tape. We just see more of it this season from Brock Purdy, getting away from some of the pressure that's created against his offensive line, scrambling, improvising, finding guys downfield, but also doing a really impressive job within the structure of these specific plays. And at the end of the day, it's turned into a number 5 efficiency rating from Brock Purdy in this season, even without Christian McCaffrey. I will say this. Purdy has been better than Mahomes this year. Mahomes has been relatively average statistically. If you don't believe me, we can go back to summer sports and we could see where Mahomes is. As far as the total EPA, there he is, number 14. If we want to do EPA per play, well, that's EPA per play. Number 14 in total EPA, EPA per play, number 14 for Patrick Mahomes. So there's nothing all too stand out from what Patrick Mahomes has done. There is for Brock Purdy. He's in the top 5. Mahomes has been slowed by some factors. Brock Purdy has been slowed by others. Their two teams meet today. The Chiefs' defense against Brock Purdy is going to be really interesting. Think about this. The 49ers have played in the last 3 weeks the New England Patriots. That's a bad defense. We could even sort this by defenses. Let's go back to summer sports. Their data by teams, because this, I think, will help me better illustrate what's at play here. So we're going to go EPA per play for defenses. The Chargers at the top of the league, but the 49ers the past 3 weeks have played the New England Patriots. All right, where are they? Oh, boy, they're way down here at number 25. So they played the number 25 defense in the league. Then the 49ers played the Arizona Cardinals. That's the number 30 defense in the league. Purdy also had a big game against the Los Angeles Rams. It's the number 31 defense in the league. This time, he faces the Kansas City Chiefs, who are the number 14 defense in the league. Step up, of course. The Seattle Seahawks, by the way, that's been a mess this season. They started off hot. It's sunk down since then. Number 9, but I think a lot of that number 9 was from facing some really bad quarterbacks to open. But the 49ers roasted the number 9 defense. I would just take it with a grain of salt. They put up 36 points. Maybe more impressive is what the 49ers did to the Jets. They put up 30 on the New York Jets in week 1. Buffalo really strained, then they struggled to score 23 against the Jets yesterday. And by every metric, the Kansas City defense has been better than the New York Jets defense so far this year. One thing that I really believe Kansas City has done well this year is that their run defense has improved from number 28 to number 8. So when we talk about Purdy performing against the Chiefs, last year we talked about the 49ers and they should be able to run the football against Kansas City. This season might be tougher. And, I think a lot was derailed last year when Christian McCaffrey fumbled on that first drive against the Chiefs. It put the 49ers all out of game script. Kansas City, they would have had a chance to grab the lead and command it throughout the game. Obviously, they weren't able to do that at the very start. Then they eventually did take the lead, but it took a trick play. It took a little bit longer. It wasn't quite the game script that the 49ers had envisioned. So, of course, it's really important to not turn the ball over, take a lead. But when we talk about how that might work in practice, if you do so, then you could put the Chiefs' run defense in a more vulnerable spot because you're probably hitting them with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more balance offensively. That being said, the Chiefs might not be as vulnerable as they were last year to that run game, even though the 49ers were never able to truly exploit it, because it does appear that they have focused on that run defense that has improved from number 28 to 8. A lot of running backs that the Chiefs have faced this year, Derrick Henry included, have not had big games against this defense. So then you wonder, is Jordan Mason going to be healthy? He was in the blue non-contact jersey for the 49ers at practice. And The I don't think that's going to be answered until later this week. It is a shoulder sprain, and with that still up in the air, it might be a Deebo Samuel type of situation for San Francisco on Sunday. I think against a good run defense like Kansas City's, to support what Brock Purdy is doing, you need real diesel running. And I think that Isaac Guerrero is a great change of pace back. I think he's improving. Obviously closed out the game last week, but you don't want to put too much on his plate too early. And I think Deebo Samuel may be the answer for the 49ers if Jordan Mason can't give them a full load on Sunday. Going to be a fascinating matchup for the 49ers when they face the Kansas City Chiefs, just because of the differences between these two quarterbacks. And the difference is, well, some people might be shocked. Those of you just joining, there you go. Purdy and Mahomes, opposites this year, but in a polar inverse way of what a lot of people might expect, starting with the air yards, continuing with a lot more. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, but some of us feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to at work and social places around our family. Therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself so you can take off the mask. Because masks should be for Halloween fun, not for our emotions. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Lombardi Lounge today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp.com/Lombardi Lounge. Again, 10% off your first month. This game on Sunday, if we think of big picture ramifications, the 49ers are 3-3. They're looking to not only punch that ticket to a winning record and then set it on, I don't want to say set it on cruise control because that implies a lack of effort, but I think they could find a rhythm with this win paired with the win against the Seattle Seahawks. I think they could really start to settle into a positive identity because that starts to solidify in the month of October. Now that we're past the de facto preseason in September, I mean, there's a whole lot on the line for a team trying to get back to the Super Bowl and win it this time, just from a logistical standpoint as far as the standings go. But with the Chiefs being on the other side of the field, there's the whole psychological aspect of this. You couldn't beat him in 2018 when Jimmy Garoppolo tore his ACL. You couldn't beat him in the 2019 Super Bowl when the Chiefs came back in Super Bowl 54. You couldn't beat him in 2022 when the Chiefs put up 40 plus at Levi's Stadium, and you couldn't beat him to close the 2023 season in the Super Bowl. That's a lot of losses to the Chiefs, 4 straight losses. Fun fact, Kyle Shanahan's first game as the coach of the 49ers came against the Kansas City Chiefs in 2017, but that was a preseason game. The 49ers actually beat the Chiefs in the 2017 preseason. They also played the Chiefs in I believe the 2021 or 2022 preseason. I forgot if they won those games or that game, whichever one they played Kansas City, but it doesn't really matter. It was the preseason. Just funny that Kyle Shanahan's first one was against Kansas City back there in 2017. Either way, this is a big moment for the 49ers because you can really clear that hurdle in your head, and you may need to clear it again when it means a whole lot more in the Super Bowl. It's not a must win by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's very, very important for how the 49ers are approaching this season, how they want to take the next step. I've written so much about the 94 49ers who lost twice in a row to the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game and how they needed to beat Dallas in the regular season. All those guys will say that regular season win was really important. I look at this one against the Chiefs in a very similar way in the larger picture of things for San Francisco. Certainly important to the fans. I think that 50% of the hype back after the 49ers beat Seattle. What a performance. Really, all phases of the game contributed. I know that special teams had the bad play for the 49ers. on the kick return, but in other spots of special teams, there was good play, especially in the punt coverage for San Francisco. 50% of the hype back through that game. I think it would be another 70% of the hype. You'd be at 120% on the hype meter if the 49ers can beat the Chiefs at home. Today's spot, Redwood City. This is Vesta in Redwood City. Take a look at some of the best pizza in the Bay Area. Shout out to the Peninsula today. That is a carbonara pizza. Yes, like carbonara, the pasta, but a carbonara pizza. And then, of course, the slow-mo affogato. I had to go decaf affogato because it was for dinner. But I think solidly Vesta in Redwood City on Broadway is one of the best meals that you'll have in the Bay Area. And I have thought so since 2012. I've been eating at Vesta for a while. Affogato, by the way, is a treat for dessert. But, often in the shadow of Palo Alto is Broadway on Redwood City, which is a really impressive strip of a ton of restaurants, of which I think Vesta is the best. But they may have competition soon. There's some kind of pizzeria from Lake Como. It's the best pizza on the shores of Lake Como is moving across the street from these guys. But it's going to be hard to compete with this. I mean, that is prosciutto and a little bit of pineapple, little dices of pineapple. And then there you have the carbonara pizza with the egg in the middle. Red pie, white pie, affogato, great stuff. And then Broadway in Redwood City. Cool little downtown strip. All these, spots on the peninsula, they have their own character. I would invite you to tell me which town on the peninsula I should check out next. Up and down from San Francisco to Santa Clara. And hell, we'll count the South Bay too. I know. Peninsula, I would say that the peninsula essentially ends with Palo Alto. I think by Mountain View, you're talking about Silicon Valley. You're talking about the South Bay at that point. But I'm willing to check out Mountain View. I'm willing to check out Campbell. I'm willing to check out Los Gatos. I mean, there's a lot of good options in the Bay Area, but Vesta in Redwood City is certainly one of them. All right, let's go on to 49ers Q&A. Downtown Los Altos. I like that one. I am now scrolling to the comment section. What's the latest on Christian McCaffrey? Recovering. Inflammation stayed down. That's great. That's what they need. No inflammation in the Achilles. Getting back into firm playing shape. And the latest that I've heard has been post-bye for Christian McCaffrey. Can't really offer many more specifics. Obviously, it wasn't going to be this week. But I do think that if the 49ers were rushing things, October would be more realistic. I don't think that there's a reason to rush things with Christian McCaffrey. Got to play that one safe. Those of you just joining, this is what we started with. This is from Matt. Matt's a good guy. I didn't realize that was Matt's image. I got stuck in the stadium with Matt the other day after the 49ers and the who was it? It was the Cardinals game. Yeah, it was the 49ers and the Cardinals. We were leaving the stadium. We were working late and the gates were all closed. And we were like, okay, well, we had to call security to open the gate. I have a crazy story. I got stuck in the stadium last year in Pittsburgh after week 1. And to this day, I'm sure I was the last person in there. I was really, really close to calling the Pittsburgh Police Department or the Pittsburgh Fire Department to get me out of Acrisure Stadium. And it was freaky because the lights were all on in the stadium and there was nobody there. Most of the time you're in a stadium late, you're riding, there's people cleaning up, right? All this, there's commotion, something going on. I started walking from concourse to concourse, suite to suite, club to club in Pittsburgh after I finished working. Absolutely nobody, not a soul. And then it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I could walk and I could see the sidewalk outside, but there's gates and they're locked and the gates are 40 feet tall. You're not climbing over a fence there. There's people walking outside and I'm like, hey, like, how do I get outside? And they're like, I don't know. So I was literally locked into the stadium in Pittsburgh and no idea what to do. A lot of the doors that have the arm bar, the horizontal bar that you push, most of those were locked. Like, so I tried to push them and they were locked. So finally I call my wife and she's at her parents' house and her dad. So my father-in-law, he had a great piece of advice. He said that he was familiar with the construction of some of these buildings and that they had to be up to fire code. And if you actually leaned against and pressed against the door, the part that goes in on those doors with the horizontal bar, if you press against it for at least 10 seconds, it will trigger a fire alarm and the door will unlock just in case of emergency so you could get out, just in case somebody was stupid enough to get locked in the stadium in Pittsburgh at midnight after week 1 with nobody else there, just in case there was a fire so that person could get out. You have to lean against that door. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try to lean against this door, against the horizontal part that presses in. And I was nervous because I really didn't want to call the fire department. And I was pressing against it. 10 seconds later, the fire alarm starts blaring in the stadium. And I get out of the stadium. It was only blaring in the local area. It wasn't like the whole stadium was going off, but it was like a little beep was happening there. And I was able to get out of the stadium in Pittsburgh. This was over a year ago now at this point. So crazy story. Thankful I didn't have to call the fire department to get me out of the Steelers stadium in week 1. Wolf is flying up from San Diego for the game on Sunday. I might be headed to San Diego after the game. First game for Dallin, first 49ers home game against the Seahawks in November. Rematch of what we saw on Thursday. I see we have some people rewatching right now from the start saying Purdy is A and B. Quarterback A, quarterback B. Well, this is the graphic from Brad if you want to take a look. I don't think there are very high chances of Ricky Pearsall being active on Sunday, but we'll see. We'll see how he practices this week. I think the 49ers are going to make some trades. This is a good question from Samuel. Maybe a trade. They always seem to be active around the deadline. This is the most aggressive front office in the league. I just don't know what they're going to do. I think we could sit around and speculate. The deadline's not till November 5th, so I think we should just all chill out for a bit, wait for a while to see what actually might happen. All right. Practice week starts tomorrow. So I just wanted to give you guys the Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes lowdown and the lowdown on Vesta and Redwood City. Good spot. You can go check it out. A lot of coverage is going to start pouring in tomorrow through the rest of the week. Thanks for watching.